Do 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 do. Hello. Actually, I spend a significant amount of time and deep thought on a lot of different topics. Um, say by standing on the shoulders of giants, you can see a lot farther. And I spent the past nearly 20 years in deep thought about the writings of the gods of electrical theory. Specifically field theory: Tesla, Faraday, Steinmetz, James Clerk Maxwell, Oliver Heaviside, Nikola Tesla, Eric Dollard's writings. About half of them are quite informative and astounding. He himself, of course, is a pretty miserable person. I've met him, but I mean, he just wants to be left alone and write and experiment. And I understand people like that. I mean, they're entirely antisocial. But I mean, that's getting off topic. So far as the topic of light is concerned, it's amazing that every epoch of human science, from the ancient Greeks and even before them, of course we have nothing history-wise really prior to the ancient Egyptians, but I mean, every epoch of human history, scientists have always thought that they had a keen bead on everything, and of course they didn't. Currently we're embroiled in a cult of atomism where we think everything is a mutual exchange of discrete particles. Literally, and this is not my position, this is the position of these idiot scientists, and you need go look no further than, the writings of Dr. Leonard Susskind or the late, great, he's not great at all, but is QED Strange Theory of Light and Matter, where they actually state undeniably, in their own words, that like magnetism is an exchange of virtual photons. Everything is just a discrete particle, but of course none of this can actually explain instantaneous action at a distance. It can't explain the acceleration. Of course, light doesn't move at all, which of course sounds ludicrous only superficially until you actually understand what light is. And of course, all of this easily explains away the wave-particle duality that idiot scientists have been talking about now for the past 60 plus years. The one thing that you can rest assured of with absolute certainty, that there is no such goddamn thing as a duality in nature. Duality, both implicitly and explicitly, is both connotatively and denotative, indicative that nature contains within itself paradoxes, or as implied dualities. And there are no dualities in nature. It is both one thing and something else. The notion that light is both particle and wave, which of course is ludicrous. A wave, fundamentally, if you use retroductive Platonic logic, which is the strongest branch of science that has ever existed and has been completely lost by mankind, will tell you forthwith, if you think about it for more than half a second with 5 brain cells, that of course there's no such thing as a wave. A wave is not a thing. A wave is what something does. No one has ever seen a wave. Well, that superficially, that also sounds very stupid, but if you actually spend, a third of your brain thinking about it for 10 seconds, assuming your brain works at all and is not perpetually thinking about sex, money, and food and bills and whatnot, which is what most people do 99% of their life, you will see that that is hyperlogical. There is no such thing as a wave. A wave, of course, is what something does, not what something is. The notion that light is a particle, of course, is absolutely absurd. This, of course, is the discrete particle theory of quantum, which believes that space and time are things, and of course they are not. Nikola Tesla himself explicitly called Einstein a, quote, fuzzy-haired crackpot and a, quote, fool. He also called him a beggar dressed in the purple robes of a king, meant intellectually, people looking up to Einstein even back in his day, but Tesla was right. Einstein, of course, was wrong. Einstein himself was considered even by the somewhat idiot, and he was a tinkerer really than a true inventor. Even Nikola Tesla said this. Thomas Edison called Einstein a fool because even Einstein didn't know what the speed of sound was. He apparently took a test of Thomas Edison's, and Thomas Edison referred to Einstein's. He must be a fool. This guy doesn't even know basic science. By the way, Einstein's stuff, everything that you and others attribute to Einstein, is stolen from an individual called, and look him up, Henri Poincaré, okay? Henri Poincaré. Everything that you attribute to Einstein, it was stolen from Henri Poincaré. This is not my position. There's actually several books written on this topic. Tesla specifically said that space has no properties, and of course it doesn't. It only has attributes. Space is not a thing. The reification of an absence is as ridiculous as some idiot child or an intellectual child thinking a shadow is a thing. If you stand in the shadow of a tree, for example, you'll be cold as opposed to standing in the sun. Therefore, a shadow does something to you. You stand in a shadow, you feel cold, therefore it must be something. And of course, we reify concepts or absences called concept reification fallacies as things that actually have properties. This is also the same issue with space. Time is only a measure of magnitudes. Time does not exist. Space has absolutely no properties, as Tesla said, and I restate because it's absolutely correct. It does have attributes, but no properties. Just as a shadow has attributes. You stand in a shadow, you feel colder than standing in the sun. But it has no property. It is not a thing itself. It is an absence or a privation. It's a reification of an absence of something else, i.e. light. Space has absolutely no properties. So the notion of reification of space and time as doing things or bending space and time, of course, is absolute bullshit. And of course, it is only the machinations of a mental midget and defunct science who believes in discrete particles as governing the universe that we believe in such bullshit. You were brought up, taught that garbage, and so was I, but sharper minds know better. Sharper minds like Tesla. By the way, the sharpest minds of electrical theory, who gave us the entire world that we know it, as far as all of our electrical circuitry and our power grid and whatnot, such as Tesla, Steinmetz, Heaviside, and James Clerk Maxwell, they all said one thing in common. They actually said a lot of things in common. They did not believe in the notion of a charge-carrying particle, the notion that gazillion different electrons are passing in the power lines in the front or back of your yard is absolutely ludicrous. Everything is fields, and fields are not particles. When it comes to light, the only way you can actually explain light is by a field perturbation. I actually was perplexed early in life reading some of the sayings of Walter Russell, who never defines a field, and Walter Russell gets about 70% of what he says accurate, which is extremely high praise for me, but he gets about 30% wrong. He never truly understood magnetism. There's no such BS as magnetic attraction. Magnetism, by denotation, is force in motion. It is literally the dielectric field and expression of the loss of that inertia. There's no such thing as magnetic attraction. It does not exist at all. And what we call magnetic attraction is dielectric acceleration. But anyway, Walter Russell said that light doesn't move at all. And superficially, this makes no sense. Of course, everybody throughout our entire lives, both you and me, have heard the same bullshit over and over and over again, which is speed of light. But light is not a speed at all. It's a rate of induction of a transverse medium. You have to understand what light is. The only misapprehension of light as having wave-like properties and particle-like properties is a misunderstanding of the coaxial nature of light. This is what the fool and deranged, fuzzy-haired crackpot and mental midget Einstein said. I'm going to try to quote him exactly here. At once, light seems to behave like a particle, and once like a wave. But neither one explains light, but together they do. This wave-particle duality is epic bullshit. There's a wave is not a thing, and light is not a particle. I mean, if I were to think such BS, then at the end of the day of taking photos, I should take my lens off and pour the photons out. Obviously, my camera is clogged up with photons. There's no such thing as a light particle. This is ridiculous. The entire universe, of course, is fields, and fields are not particles. The reconciliation of phenomena of light, by the way, like when you pass light through, and of course light is not passing through, it's a field perturbation. Kind of like taking a giant quilt of fabric and actually shaking it. Say it's another person is holding the other end of a fabric and you're sitting here putting ripples. You actually do a whiplash in a sheet of fabric, for example. Someone else is holding the other side of it. You see a propagation or a wave travel from one side to the next. But the fabric, of course, is itself not propagating in that linear fashion at all. What is happening is a perturbation. In this case, the ether would be representative of the fabric, but the fabric itself is not moving linearly. It is actually being perturbed in a transverse motion. And this, most people don't know what a coax cable actually looks like, but light, of course, is a coaxial circuit. A longitudinal pulse perturbation, dielectric pulse perturbation with a higher frequency corresponding to greater power, having smaller volume. And of course this is one of the fundamental secrets of field theory, which should not be a secret, that the smaller the space, the higher the capacitance. Most people don't realize as the volume of EMR, electromagnetic radiation, decreases, the power exponentially increases. This would be like infrared, and it gets smaller and smaller. You go towards gamma, which is incredibly powerful. You may be killed by gamma radiation just like that, but gamma radiation is just a high energy form of light. I mean, it is all EMR, and ultimately there's no such thing as matter. The reconciliation that I've spent a lifetime, and I've finally figured it out, it's a no-duh. It'd take a long time to explain. I'd have to make like 10 videos on it, but the reconciliation of matter is very, very simple. And also, too, the reconciliation of matter as being a 40 or 50 magnitude higher than gamma radiation in electrovolts is very, very simplex. So reconciled, of course, there's only three things in the universe. There's light, matter, and spirit. And of course, spirit, of course, is a very pathetic ancient term, but there's only three things in the universe, and I've completely reconciled light and matter. Matter, fundamentally, there's only one fundamental particle, and that is nothing other than a super high energy version of light, or EMR. It is literally a standing, you want to say standing wave, I hate to use the word wave, you actually have a standing particle of ultra high energy. And of course these are dynamos, the fundamental particle of the universe, of course, being hydrogen, and complex harmonics of hydrogen compounded, of course, form every element in the universe. But the quickest way, by the way, and I love tripping up the people that think they're so smart, because you put 100 of the smartest people in the world in this room, and I'll trip every one of them up. All you have to do is ask them how you reconcile, and of course they say stupid stuff like light pushes off the glass. Like if you pass light through glass, for example, it speeds back up after it leaves glass, but obviously, this breaks the law of conservation of energy, but they actually have crazy explanations, like the light bounces off. It pushes off the glass, pushes off, like they actually animate light as if it's something escaping from a tight squeeze and reaccelerates. Of course, that's absolutely impossible because it breaks the law of conservation of energy, which not only current science in its defunct state, but common sense will tell you that you can't break the law of conservation of energy. And even the dumbest scientist, or the most proud one, will never do that, but that's what they'll actually try to say. And the only way you can actually explain all the phenomena of light, and there's only one way that you can do that, is a field or ether perturbation. I don't care if you want to say counter space or ether or zero-point energy. All of these are bullshit terms. When we use the word ether, I don't care what people call it. We're talking mincing words and nuances over, what to call it, a tomato or tomato. Only fools engage in that type of sophistry, but light doesn't move at all. It's a rate of induction. The so-called speed of light is not a speed at all. It's a rate of induction. Light slows down, because everything's capacitance, resistance, magnetic permeability, and dielectric permittivity, but glass slows down. Light slows down when it passes through glass. It slows down. I hate to say the word slow down, but for conventional parlance and for speaking communicatively, so that you could actually understand what I'm saying, it slows down, passes through water, countless other things, unless it's a pure vacuum, and no human being has ever created a pure vacuum. Even space is not a pure vacuum. But there's only one means by which you can explain all phenomena of light. Also, too, explaining the constructive and destructive interference in the... If you actually understand that light, I'm going to get to the summation of it here very, very quickly, at this particular point. If you understand of light as a field perturbation, then explaining the double slit experiment is extremely easy, because then you understand waves are not things. Okay, they're what things do, right? This is a wave. No, that's my hand moving. This is a wave. That's my hand moving. There's waves out in the ocean. Waves of what? This is sort of Molary and Curly human stupidity of mental midgets that you deal with when people talk about... Scientists love talking about waves, but there's no such goddamn thing as a wave. Waves out there in the ocean. Waves of what? Waves on the waves of what? Water. Okay, finally you hit it. It's water. It's a perturbation of the water, right? Due to the movement of the moon, high tide, low tide. Yeah, it's a perturbation of the water. A wave is an attribute of the perturbation of the water. But there's no such thing as waves. When we talk about waves, we have to talk about a wave of what? But this wave-particle duality doesn't exist. So if you understand that a wave is not a thing, i.e. essentially waves do not exist, retroductively it's irreducibly irrefutable to say that waves don't exist. Light cannot be a particle if you actually understand it as a field. But explaining the double slit experiment is insanely easy. But if you have this bullshit in your head, like everybody on Earth does because everybody's an idiot, you think that's a really egotistical statement, but I mean that entirely and truly. If you understand that light is not moving, okay, light is neither a wave nor is it a particle, explaining the double slit experiment is insanely easy. It becomes, that makes perfect sense. If we understand it as a field perturbation, the double slit experiment sets up a phase, and then you have after that, after the perturbation passes that, you have simplex constructive destructive interference. Same thing you see underneath the supercell, or the ferrocell conventionally so. But light is purely conceptual, for example. Nobody sees light. They see a field perturbation, but light itself is also, the term denotatively is conceptual. No one has ever seen light. What they see is manifestation. Due to dielectric permittivity and magnetic permeability, they see manifestation. What if, for example, Bob only exists? Bob is light, okay? Sure, light exists. Everybody knows. What the hell are you talking about? What are you smoking, you bald, tattooed asshole? Well, if Bob is light, if Bob stops moving, right? If Bob stops moving, he vanishes, right? Well, that's not very, no, it's a perfect analogy. If light is only defined by its attribute, i.e. illumination and manifestation, then light is purely a conceptual reification created by humans to speak about the phenomena of illumination by referring to it as light. You know, this is also the same nonsense if you think that light is a wave or a particle or that something emits light. People turn on the light in their bathroom, they think that the light bulb is emitting light. It doesn't emit anything, it sets up a field perturbation. The manifestation, of course, is the rapid change, extremely rapid change in dielectric permittivity and magnetic permeability of the back of your eyes where manifestation exists, sets up an electrical current which is biological, transmits the signal to your brain. That's light. Light does not move, it's not a wave, it's not a particle. Light itself, the term light, is purely conceptual. It actually has no place within the actual universe of Mother Nature, or as we would say in the Latin, natura naturans. Light does not exist, it is purely conceptual. Everything human beings call light is conceptual. We're referring to illumination. It doesn't move. Waves don't exist. If you think about it, don't call me a fool. Think about it a second. If you want to have a debate on it, I'll destroy you. Waves are not things. Waves are what things do. Explaining every phenomena of light, and I can guarantee you, no matter what you think of me or how egotistical you think I am in stating this, I have thought about every major and minor type of phenomena, including LEDs and lasers. I grew up screwing around with lasers. Thought about every phenomena of light that you could possibly imagine, okay, including the freaky one. What? Wave-particle duality, dual slit experiment, any sort of crazy thing that science or, explaining light. I've thought about it deeply. There's only one way you can explain light without being self-contradictory prick, like modern scientists are, who think that light is a wave particle duality. It's particle, photons. Every time I hear that word, I cringe, my sphincter puckers, because the person that's emitting those words is nothing other than a slightly evolved, knuckle-dragging orangutan. Because human beings have no idea what the hell light is, and light itself is purely conceptual. We're referring to light, we're actually referring to illumination, but in the case of our analogy of Bob, if Bob is light, and we only define Bob when he changes, and of course, four Maxwellian field equations only define a field, never define a field itself, but only define a field in change over a period of time with a given effect. If we can only define Bob through motion, if Bob stops moving and he vanishes, I mean, does Bob exist, or are we only defining Bob by a change in phenomena that we refer to as Bob. And this, of course, is about the best analogy between principle and attribute, or light and illumination. Of course, the ancient Greek Platonists thought about this very deeply, and this is why they referred to the agathon and the euristos dias, right? The indefinite dyad. But it's not really a dyad. What it is speaking about is speaking about the ahorismos, i.e. the euristos dias, and I'm using ancient Greek here, of this ineffable attribute, which is no different than illumination. Of course, this also exists in ancient Sanskrit, and earlier to that, Prakrit, in referring to vidya and avidya. This primordial attribute of vidya is avidya. Avidya is incorrectly translated as ignorance. Specifically, it is primordial illumination, or the extrinsic attribute of the absolute, in the case of pure monism. M-O-N-I-S-M, right? The ancient Greeks were monists. Pythagoras, Plato, Plotinus, Numenius, Syrianus, Damasius, the ancient Egyptians to a certain degree. That's monism, by the way. That's what it's called. It's called monism. M-O-N-I-S-M. You want to look that up. Which you'll not really find much information on because nobody researches that kind of stuff anymore. But I could actually, and I don't even need my freaking iPad here in front of me. There's just some notes to go. I could go on and on and on about light until the cows come home. I could go so far down the goddamn rabbit hole, your toenails will curl and turn black. But how deep do I go before people roll their eyes into the back of their head? Because none of this stuff makes you richer. Wisdom, of course, itself is the most important riches, but nobody cares about that anymore. Well, very few people do. This must be why people think I'm in the Illuminati. You never know. How deep down the rabbit hole should I go on light? By the way, this book doesn't explain light. This just happens to be a book that I really love. I've been through this book so many times, I need a new copy. It's falling apart on me like a son of a gun. Love this book. I wish this guy was still alive, Dr. Oleg D. Jeffimenko. Anyway, I hope you like these videos. If you don't, tell me to piss off. If you do, you could always drop a buck or two or ask me some questions. I could wax on poetically about the metaphysics of light and the true science of light until the cows come home. But I can assure you of one thing. Modern science has no goddamn idea what the hell light is. And they reify waves, and they're an atomist. They think light is a particle and a wave-particle duality, and they haven't got a goddamn clue what light is. Light does not move. There's no such thing as the speed of light. It's the rate of induction. The only way you can explain all the phenomena of light is from my position. That's the only way you could do it. Everything else is discrete particle dual communication nonsense, which could never explain so-called re-acceleration of light without breaking the law of conservation. Every idea about light that science has that's spawned from this atomistic bullshit of Niels Bohr and Einstein is epic bullshit. This is why this is why Tesla called Einstein a fuzzy-haired crackpot and a lunatic. Yeah, this is what Nikola Tesla called Albert Einstein. By the way, Einstein in Greek means one stone, which is, as implied, an idiot. When you say someone's got one stone, it's like the meaning they got one marble on their head. Einstein literally means, in German, is an insult, means idiot. I find that incredibly amazing that Einstein's very name is a joke, meaning idiot. Einstein, one stone, means you got one marble rolling around on your head, means you're an idiot. That's like cosmic poetry right there. A guy that would be praised by the entire world, but yet his name means idiot. And the people that have common sense and wisdom, like Tesla and a few others, they realized what an idiot that guy was. And everything that actually people praised him for was stolen. Yes, I use the word specifically, stolen from him, stolen by him from Henri Poincaré. Look that guy up. Everything that Henri Poincaré wrote came before Einstein, and that's where Einstein stole his stuff. That's correct. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you like these videos. Goodbye.